Thank you for joining. I'm excited to talk with you today about placing students in Read Naturally Encore. Encore, of course, is the paper and audio CD version of Read Naturally. And so we're going to talk through that process, which is also done in paper format. And as a result, you have two different handouts that are going to be useful for you today. One of them is just a copy of our slides, and that is available in in the chat box now. The other handout that you'll like to have handy is the placement packet, and I will refer to it a few times while we're in this presentation, and it is also available in your chat box. It is what is utilized for placing students. There's actually the placement passages are within it, as well as instructions. There's a phonics assessment in there, so there's lots of resources within that placement packet. Today, we're going to cover first the purpose of placement, understanding the initial placement, so what is contained with it and how we make the determinations that we do. Then we'll talk about conducting initial placement. So we're actually going to walk through the different steps within the guide that's in the placement packet. And then I'm going to give some examples. So everything we mentioned as we walk through the placement guide quickly will likely be covered in one of the examples that will follow the discussion of the actual steps of conducting initial placement. And then we'll talk briefly about what comes next after you get your students going. So the purpose of placement is real easy and simple. It's just to decide where to put the kids in order to start them using this program. You are going to determine which level is right for the student in Read Naturally Encore, okay? One of the most important things to remember when thinking of placement is that the level that is right for the student in Read Naturally Encore may not be their independent or even instructional level. So other assessment information that you have is not going to determine the level for them to use in Read Naturally Encore. Our placement process is essential. We put students in a level that's actually a little higher than their instructional level. They get a lot of support, right? They read along with those audio CDs. They learn words they don't know. They practice over and over again. So because of the audio support they get, because of the practicing and repetition they get, they're able to work in a level that's a little higher than their instructional level. So you are determining not what the student's reading level is, but what level is right for the student in Encore. Then you are also going to select a series. Now, some of you may only have one series at your site. So that process is real easy for you. If you're anything like me, that's a relief. One less decision to make. Others of you might have two or all three of our series. And so in the placement packet, there's a table that helps you identify where those series are and which levels they align to. And we'll cover that when we get to that part. Finally, you're going to set a story goal. And the story goal is based on how the student does on placement. It is not a long-term fluency goal. It's just a goal within the program. It means that it's the words correct per minute pace that you want the student to be able to read the story at after going through all the steps with that story. So after they've read along, done their cold timing, after they've read along with the audio CDs, after they practiced over and over on their own, when they read for you on that final pass timing, the story goal, they have to prove to you that they can meet in that pass timing. That is initially set during placement. So let's talk about understanding initial placement a little bit more deeply. We actually have two phases of placement. Today, we're talking about conducting initial placement. It's September. That's what we do in September. We get our kids put in the right level of various programs so that they can get going and start working. So that's what we're talking about today. And when we conduct initial placement, we are basing that off of fluency scores for students in the sequence series or idiom series. We also might take into account a phonics need for students in the phonics series. But checking initial placement happens after students have passed a few stories, ideally 3. And then you're looking at comprehension, right? So we want conducting initial placement to be a quick process. We want to get them started. They're behind. Time is of the essence. So conducting initial placement is done as quickly as possible. We will look at their comprehension after they pass 2, 3, 4 stories when we do checking initial placement. All right. We have another webinar on that next month. So don't worry about it now. Today, let's just worry about the task at hand, which is conducting initial placement. So it's important to understand that we have 2 different kinds of students that we're going to work with today. The students who have fluency needs only. And of course, almost always as a result, they also have comprehension needs, right? That's why Encore is such a great option for them. There's many comprehension steps and components into the program. Those students are going to use either the sequence series or the idiom series, whatever you have in your site, but those will be the ones that students whose primary issue is fluency, they will use one of those 2 series. If you have a student who has fluency and phonics needs, you might be able to utilize the phonics series, which is part of Read Naturally Encore. But of course, only if you have it in your building. But the phonics series is written at a 1st, 2nd, and very early 3rd grade level. So you can only consider the phonics series for students who read at a 1st, 2nd, or very, very early 3rd grade level. All right. Any student who's reading at a mid 3rd grade level or above, they're going to have their phonics needs addressed elsewhere. All right. Or if they are reading at that, maybe they read at a 3rd grade level, but their phonics issue is at a lower level than that, then also that student might need to have their phonics skills taught elsewhere. So we're going to talk through both of these examples today as we go through the process of conducting initial placement. We have a really awesome 1-page document in our placement packet. It is in the first page of the appendix. I'm going to pop out of my PowerPoint for just a minute, and I'm going to go to my placement packet, which looks like this, and just show you. It's on the first page of the appendix. If you're viewing it in like a PDF reader type situation, the number is 66 that you put into the pages. That's the number of pages. And as you can see on this document, it has this vertical line down the middle, okay? It is showing you that the first side, the left side, provides you with instructions. Now, the placement packet has much more detailed instructions than this. I think it starts around page 15 or so. So if you want really detailed instructions of how to do all of this, that is available in the placement packet. If you want a more quick, easy option, this worksheet and instruction sheet is your resource. So the left side gives you all the information you need. Tells you how to do it in the order you need to do it. It tells you the placement ranges. As you can see around midway through, we have a little table showing the placement ranges. It tells you the placement testing levels, where the phonics series appears, where the idiom series appears, so that you can line up whether or not there's an option in a different series that might be available. Okay, so this is your 1-page, all the information you need to get this done. The other side is actually the worksheet you can use. So you can run copies of this page and write the name of each student you take through placement on the top of each one. And then this becomes what you utilize to when you go through the placement process. And that's a really handy way to do it. At first, you're going to look at that left side to get your information. And after you do a handful of them, you might never need to look at that left side again, but it's there if you need it. All right, so the first step that's listed on that quick list is estimating the reading level and determining the testing level. All right, so you're going to figure out whether or not the student has fluency or phonics needs. If they have phonics needs, you're going to figure out which phonics need they have. Okay, and we have in the back of the placement packet is a phonics diagnostic to help you identify that if you don't have one. Okay. After you estimate their reading level or determine their phonics need, you're going to find the story in the placement packet. This placement packet has a story from all of the levels in the sequence series. So this is the packet you will use with your actual student, because the stories are in here for your students to read off of. Okay. The next few steps are conducting the 1 minute timing. You're going to calculate words correct per minute, determine if the level is right or not, meaning if the score fits within a table that's provided for you, select the series and level and set a goal. Okay, so those are the steps. Again, you're just estimating the level and finding it in the placement packet. You're going to do a 1 minute timing on that level, get your words correct per minute score. If it fits in the placement table, you can pick that level and set the goal. If it doesn't, might have to give them another passage or two. All right. It takes about 5 minutes per kid to take them through this process. So with a student who has fluency needs, you're going to estimate the level based on what you know about the student. Okay. If your student has phonics needs, you are going to maybe use that phonics testing in the back, or maybe you have a different phonics resource, but you only need to do that before placement if you're working with a student who reads at a first or second grade level or early third. Okay. So if you know your student reads at a mid third or above, then you still have to worry about phonics. You still have to figure out if they have phonics issues and fill them if you need to, but you don't have to do that before you do our placement. Okay, because if their phonics needs are not at those real low levels, then you're going to place them only on fluency in our program. All right. Now, step 3 is conducting a 1 minute timing using a testing level. We have all sorts of information in our placement packet that can help you. In fact, I'm going to pop out of the PowerPoint again just for a minute. And I want to show you, we have information about how to conduct a 1 minute timing. So if you are brand new to this process, we can tell you how to do it. We also have resources that in the placement packet that tells you what we count as an error and what we do not count as an error. So if you want a resource for that, that's also available in your placement packet. I think they're pages 15, 16. Okay. When you calculate words correct per minute, you're going to keep track of how many words they attempt, keep track of how many mistakes they make, and you're going to write it on your little worksheet that I showed you. After you do the math, you're going to get a words correct per minute score, which you're going to plug into this table. If the testing range matches, you're done. Okay, you just have to pick the level and give them a goal based on that score they got. If not, you might have to give them a higher level or a lower level. In our placement packet, we have these tables that help you do that. But it's intuitive. You're going to know it even without looking at the tables. If your student reads outside the range on the low end, you're going to pick a lower level, right? It means it was too hard. And you might even know that without having to look, because you could see what happened to the student. If your student's words correct per minute score is outside the range on the high end, guess what? You're going to say that level was a little too easy. Let's try something that's a little more challenging and give them the next level up. Okay, so you'll do that process until you find something that fits well. Then what you'll do is select your, where you're going to select your series and your level. So here is the testing level. Look in the column where my mouse is moving up and down. The farthest column on the left is the testing level. Then it tells you the 3 different series we have available and how they line up. So 2.0 has the sequence series 2.0 and the phonics series 1.8. Okay, and you can line those up for all the different options. Then you set the goal based on that words correct per minute score for the level they placed in. You're going to add 30 for young students and 40 for older students. Don't worry about memorizing this. Remember that great one-page sheet that has the instructions on the left and the worksheet on the right? All of that information is on that sheet. You're going to have it when you need it, where you need it, and it will not be anything you need to memorize. You will end up memorizing it because you'll go through several of them. But at first you don't need to. You'll learn it and then it will be something you just know, but you still have that as a resource for checking. Okay. There are some additional considerations to consider. So in our placement packet from page 20 to 25, there's information about what to do for students who test below the range of our lowest levels. What if their phonics need doesn't match their testing level? What about beginning readers? All those kinds of things. Many of the examples we're about to walk through are going to highlight what you would do in those scenarios. And if you want a refresher on that, if you want more information, more examples, take a look at the placement packet for some of the additional considerations. So let's take a look at a student. We are going to go through a few different students and go through the process of placing them together. So here's Anna. She's a 7th grader. She's below expectations on standardized tests. Her current English teacher says 6th grade novels are a little hard. She's below expectations on a fall fluency benchmark assessment. From 1.0 to 8.0, what level might you start? What level on the placement packet might you locate to give her first? I might do 5.0. If in your head you thought of a level that's slightly different than that, that's okay. You're still going to get to the right spot. All right. So don't waste a lot of time on estimating. It's an estimate. Give it your best guess. It's only a 1-minute timing on each passage. So select that story and go ahead and conduct that placement test. See how many words she attempted, subtract her errors, get that words correct per minute score. Okay, so let's say we did that with Anna. We gave her 5.0. She read 93 words with 8 errors. That gives us a score of 85 words correct per minute. Okay. That is outside the range on the placement table. And again, this placement table is not something you need to memorize. It is on that worksheet and instruction sheet for you. It's also in the placement packet several other places, but it's on that worksheet. So she doesn't fit. Look, 85 is outside the range on the high end. So which level should I give her? Do I give her 4.5 or 5 or go up to the mid 5th? I'm going to go up, right? Because she was outside the range on the high end. So when I give her 5.6, she reads 82 words correct per minute. That's right within the range. I'm going to put her in 5.6. Nice thing about 5.6 is there are no phonics levels or idioms levels, so I can just pick the only option I have. Okay. Now, what about a student like Rob? Rob's a 4th grader. And when we give Rob level 3.0, he reads 65 words correct per minute. So just like Anna, outside the range on the high end. So we're going to give him the next level up, 3.5. But when we give him the next level up, now he's outside the range on the low end. Okay, that will happen occasionally. It's not often. Most of your students are going to be like Anna. They're going to fit nicely into one of those levels. Every once in a while, you get a student like Rob who is between levels. And then you just use what you know about Rob to make the decision. Okay. So if Rob was an English language learner, I'd go low because I know he likely has a limited English vocabulary. If he was a really bright kid with a great oral vocabulary, I might put him in a higher level. If I know nothing about Rob, I'm going to go with the lower level. And I'm going to remember that Rob will likely be ready to move up to the higher level before most of his peers, right? Because on placement, he was already a little outside the level I'm putting him in. So he's going to get to move up a level probably before any of the other kids in the class, right? So in 3.0 is what I chose for Rob. And in 5.6, there are different options. As you can see, Rob, if you have every level that Read Naturally Encore provides, you will have to choose between these options. If you only have the sequence series, then the decision is made for you. Anna, it doesn't matter what you have in your site. All we have is this 5.6. Okay. Now, when you set the goal, it is based on the grade of the student, the age of the student, not their reading level, but how old is the kid? How old is the student? So if your student is in 4th grade and below, you're going to add 30 to the placement score. and round down to the nearest 5. Okay. If your student is older, 5th grade and above, you will add 40 and round down to the nearest 5. Now remember, you don't have to memorize this. This information is also on that great worksheet that you're going to use when you actually go to do this with your students. So with Anna on 5.6, she read 82 words correct per minute. Anna was a 7th grader, right? So we put 40 onto her score, which gave us 122. We recommend rounding down to the nearest 5 so the numbers are easier to deal with. So her story goal is 120. Rob's a 4th grader. We didn't know anything about Rob, so we put him in the lower level to be on the safe side. And on level 3.0, he read 65 words. We add 30, so his story goal is 95. Right? Now, Janelle is a student who has phonics issues. Okay, she's a 4th grader. She reads at about a 2nd grade level. And I know she really struggles with R controlled and soft C and G. Okay, so I'm going to go into the placement packet and I'm going to find the table that lists the phonics skills taught. That information is on your worksheet too, okay? I'm going to find R controlled and soft C and G. Janelle's a student who reads at a 2nd grade level, so I know there's a phonics option for her. Is it going to line up well enough? Okay, so I'm going to find 2.5 because 2.5 lines up with R controlled and soft C and G. Okay, and again, the table on your guide is going to tell you that information. So don't worry about writing it down or memorizing it. If you give Janelle level 2.5, she reads 48 words with 4 errors. That's 44 words. That places right within the range for the mid-2nd grade level. So you can put her in 2.3 because 2.3 is where R controlled, soft C and G are taught, and that's her issue. Okay, and that will happen with younger students reading at those 1st and 2nd grade levels. Many of their phonics needs are also at those lower levels. But if Janelle placed in level 3.5 or 3.0 even, where soft C and G and R controlled are not taught, then I would put her in the sequence series. I'd put her in as high a level as she could handle with comprehension and fluency, and I would address phonics someplace else. Okay, you still have to fill that hole, but you want to challenge them as much as they can in all the different areas because they don't always line up nicely. Another thing that doesn't always line up nicely is those beginning readers. And so if you give a student our lowest level and they read outside the range on the low end. So let's say you give this little student level 1.0, she reads 22 words correct per minute. So that's outside this range of 30 on the low end. You can still put her in our lowest levels if she recognizes at least 50 written words and her beginning sounds. So beginning readers need to know their beginning sounds and they need to be able to read about 50 words in the world. Okay, we don't have a specific list. It's just, you know, some CVC words, maybe a few high frequency words, so they can read about 50 words. If you have both options, meaning if you have the sequence series and the phonics series at your site, beginning readers will do better in the phonics series because they need those phonics lessons. The stories are a little easier because many words follow a similar pattern. So if you have the option, go with the phonics series. If you don't, that student can work in the level 1.0 if that's the one that the only one you have at your site. Okay. So let's take Antonio as a 6th grader. He's an English language learner. All right, I think he's reading at about a late 3rd grade level. So I give him 3.5, he's outside on the high end. I give him 4.0, he's outside on the high end. I give him 4.5 and he's in there. Okay, so it took maybe 3. That's common. You're going to be somewhere between, usually about 2, somewhere between 1 and 3 is kind of the range. So we're going to put him in 4.5. That's the right place for this student based on our placement table. Now, you could have them use the sequence series or the idiom series if you have that at your site, or Spanish. But depending on what you have, you will select whichever one's available at the mid fourth grade level. Okay. Now, here's our example of a young student. Jessie's a second grader. She knows her beginning sounds, but she can only read about 60 words. I give her level 1.0. She reads 29 words, but 4 of them were mistakes. So she only read 25 words correct per minute. Can she still work and Read Naturally Live? I'm sorry, and Read Naturally Encore. Sorry. Yes, she can still work in Encore, so long as she can recognize at least that 50 words, right? You have 2 options. If you actually have both these options at your site, go with the phonics one. But if you only have the sequence series at your site, then the sequence series will work fine for Jessie. Okay. Tanya is a student who again places between levels. So she's a 10th grader. Her estimate is 5th grade reading level. I give her 2 stories. One is too easy, one is too hard. We can use either one. The reason we bring up this example, or one of the reasons anyway, is remember with Rob was an example of placing between 2 levels too. And we kind of decided, well, if we don't know anything, we're going to go on the low end. He was a 4th grader reading at a 3rd grade level. He's only a year below grade level. But Tanya is a 10th grader reading at a 5th grade level. She is very far below. You might be more inclined to put her in a slightly higher level for those students who are further behind, right? You have slightly different issues based on each kid. And so your gut teacher instincts are going to tell you quite a bit too. So either of these options would be fine. With Tanya's case, you might be slightly more likely to go on the high end just because she's so many years below grade level. Okay. All right. So remember, your best resource is this quick reference instructions and the worksheet for recording individual results. Everything between these 2 sections on this one page, everything you need, everything we covered, every decision I made, every decision we walked through, the information I needed to make that decision is on this page. So make copies of this, find it in your placement packet, run copies of it, and you can lean on that until you don't have to anymore. Now, after placement, your students are going to work in their level and their series with their story goal. And as they work, they're going to get better. And so you're going to take a look at their data. And in a month or so, we're going to have another webinar on how to take a look at their data, what decisions to make based on that data. The first timing to keep in your mind is that second phase of placement. Remember how I talked about we had conducting initial placement, and then the second phase was checking initial placement. So after your students complete about 3 stories, that's when you want to take a look at checking initial placement. And we will have a webinar that goes into detail about that. But just keep that in your mind. Once you get your kids up and running, after they complete a few stories, you want to check their data to see if they are ready, if they are in the right spot, because now you will have comprehension data, right? Before we just had fluency information, but now we'll also have comprehension information. Right. So we just covered the 4 different components that we wanted to regarding placement and Read Naturally Encore. I am very grateful to you for your attention today, your time, and your interest in learning about this. And we hope that you call and email us when your questions come up. Have a great day.